Good morning. We're here this morning to take a retrospect look at the year of 2019 and to reaffirm our commitment to reducing violent crime in our city this year. I'm joined today by Deputy Chief of Staff for Public Safety, Sonny Schitzner, and Police Commissioner Michael Harrison. First, I'll ask that we all take a moment of silence out of respect for those who lost their lives to violence this year. Thank you. I want to let all Baltimoreans know that I feel your pain due to the senseless loss of your loved ones, and I share in the anger about the persistent level of violence occurring in our communities. I, too, have lost loved ones to violence in our city, and I don't wish that grief on anyone. Our residents deserve to live without the fear of violence, and it is my obligation and duty to leverage every resource and tool available to stop the cycle of violence that is crippling our city. This problem is what keeps me up at night, and it's the first thing I'm thinking of when I wake up each morning, because it's that urgent. We cannot stop violent crime through policing alone. We must use both community-based interventions and an integrated crime-fighting strategy. The Commissioner released the city's crime plan, and it lays out the framework for crime reduction across the city. In addition to specific policing strategy, the plan also lays out 5 areas that make up our crime prevention strategy. That's prevention, intervention, enforcement, reentry, and rehabilitation. This plan is how we will reduce crime in our city, and as mayor, I will do everything in my power to support the commissioner and his plan. And that includes partnership with other law enforcement agencies, new technologies, and additional state and federal funding. Earlier this year, I traveled to Washington to stand with fellow mayors and gun violence survivors across the country to demand stronger federal gun laws and request federal funding and guidance on challenges like witness intimidation. As your mayor, I will spend each day and every day maintaining that same sense of urgency and collaboration, not only with our partners in government, but also our community stakeholders, to insist we find solutions to the violence that plague our beloved city. Under my leadership, we're bringing to bear the might of our federal, state, regional, and local partners to address the violence now. This includes the Office of the Baltimore City State's Attorney, the U.S. Attorney's Office, State Police, the Sheriff Department, the Department of Juvenile Justice, Probation and Parole, DEA, ATF, FBI, and our neighboring counties. We will also determine how each city agency can play a part in deploying solutions to gun violence. We can talk all day about what to do after someone is killed, but we must also have a hard conversation about why the perpetrators of violence have no regards for human life. This is an issue that both saddens and troubles me. That's the culture of violence that has taken root in our beloved city. And under my administration, we will not stop working our crime plan and making adjustments as needed until we change this culture of violence in Baltimore City. Now we'll hear from Sonny Schitzner about some of the progress we made in some of our crime reduction initiatives, as well as a preview of some other new crime fighting initiatives that are in the works. Sonny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mayor Young expressed, the level of violence that we've experienced over the past several years is completely unacceptable. Any act of violence is one too many, and we must use every resource available to prevent and better respond to violence. As we continue to work tirelessly to overcome the violence in Baltimore, I wanted to highlight just some of the hard work that's occurring behind the scenes to prevent violence. Our approach to address violent crime includes community-based strategies and resources and partnerships, and a targeted multi-agency law enforcement response. We're confident, for example, that Safe Streets, the city's flagship violence intervention program, saves lives and changes community norms around violence. Earlier this month, the Cherry Hill Safe Streets site celebrated 365 days with no firearm homicides. We've expanded to 9 sites this year. Collectively, in 2019, the Safe Streets program has mediated nearly 2,000 conflicts, hosted nearly 300 community events, and conducted countless public education efforts. The ROCA program, which is designed to work with high-risk youth, is actively working day in and day out with young people in Baltimore to prevent shootings. In just the past 6 months, the program has made over 3,200 contacts with young people who are at a high risk of experiencing violence. And for those folks, they've also provided transitional employment for nearly 50 young men. And they're preparing many more to engage in meaningful work opportunities, which will help keep them away from high-risk situations. The city and many of our partners, both government and community, have made significant investments in these strategies, and we're committed to continuing these investments for sustainability and to ensure the success of these programs. This administration is also dedicated to data-driven policing and accountability. The Mayor's Office of Performance and Innovation partners with BPD and other agencies to hold a bi-weekly police stat. Police stat is a critical management mechanism which allows us to track some of the most important areas of BPD's work. Everything from how we respond to violent crime, to how we use our technology to target criminal activity, to tracking the performance of even individual units. And while we see progress in these and other initiatives, no single program or effort can turn the tide of violence. We must do more. Looking ahead to 2020, we have several new initiatives that will deepen and accelerate these efforts. For example, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice is actively working with the Department of Juvenile Services on a strategic partnership to better align city, state, and community resources for justice-involved youth. A few minutes ago, I mentioned police stat. In 2020, we'll focus the bulk of our analysis on gun crimes. We'll use all available crime gun data to identify areas for improvement on how we respond to firearm violence. The Mayor's Office has assigned a high-level crime analyst to focus on working with the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department to apprehend those individuals with open criminal warrants in the city of Baltimore. The analyst will work with both the Police Department and the Sheriff's Office to clean up our data and to create a data-driven approach to serving our highest priority warrants for violent offenses. Starting in early 2020, the city will begin weekly homicide, non-fatal shooting, and armed robbery case reviews with the Police Department and the state's attorney to ensure we have the highest quality cases moving forward. After completing a pilot project earlier this year, the city and several of our partners are in the process of finalizing a non-fatal shooting response protocol. This protocol is designed to provide resources to prevent retaliation in the wake of a shooting in some of the areas that are experiencing the highest rates of violence in the city. With support from a federal grant, the city will also be establishing a reentry-focused position in the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. We're also currently exploring opportunities to better utilize the City Watch program in collaboration with the community. As many of you know, this program is made up of 800 city-owned cameras that are actively monitored. It's a force multiplier not only for BPD, but for all of our public safety efforts. And over the coming weeks and months, we'll be continuing to share information about other crime reduction initiatives that are in the works. We'll be relentless in our pursuit to make our city safe and to break the cycle of violence that has shaken our city. I'll now turn it over to Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you, Sonny, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership. I want to begin my remarks today by first acknowledging and keeping in mind the family members and friends of all those who have lost loved ones and who have been impacted by violence over the past year here in Baltimore. The number of people who were shot and killed or injured this year due to gun violence in Baltimore is deeply disturbing. We even had police officers shot and injured because of this violence. That level of violence simply cannot be tolerated in a civil society, much less in a great city like Baltimore. I assure you that the men and women of the Baltimore Police Department feel the urgency because we live the urgency every day and are doing everything we can every single day to reduce the rate of violence through our enforcement actions and our proactive efforts. The Baltimore Police Department has a central role in the crime fight, but to address the root causes of violence that have plagued Baltimore for decades, we need help of people from many professions and many different walks of life, all working together for a common cause. Like a physician, I have been and I will continue to be committed to treating the actual disease instead of just treating symptoms. And when we only treat symptoms and never deal with root cause issues, violence, like a disease, builds resistance. It gets stronger and becomes more difficult to eradicate. This approach, coupled with accountability-driven leadership and effective constitutional enforcement that results in real consequences that takes offenders off of the streets so that they cannot reoffend and deters would-be offenders because they fear and have respect that there will be real consequences for their actions. When we do all of that, we will finally be able to change the culture of violence that has held this city back for far too long. As I outlined in my comprehensive transformation plan released in July, we must continue to focus on the city's most violent criminals, who are responsible for the vast majority of the violent crimes that are being committed. Our deployment and enforcement strategies that went into effect in the second half of this year are an important piece to the overall plan to curb the use of illegal guns to get in front of illegal drug activity in the city. While the number of shootings and homicides was unacceptably high this year, we did see reductions in almost every other crime category, including robberies, burglaries, rapes, and overall violent crime. We also seized nearly 2,000 illegal guns and made 1,300 or more arrests of persons illegally carrying those guns. In 2020, we will continue this momentum while making our department more effective, more efficient, more transparent, and more accountable. Fixing the administrative side of the Baltimore Police Department is another necessary and fundamental part of the crime fight. We have made great strides this year in reforming and rebuilding the police department, which will allow us to better manage our resources and focus more clearly on deployment strategies and enforcement strategies. For starters, we made major changes to the department's organizational structure to streamline the chain of command, improve the lines of communication, and create an appropriate span of control with the goal of making the department more efficient and effective and enable us to measure the impact of what we're doing. We've totally revamped our CompStat process to be a 360-degree performance management tool that measures the impact of our managers and our supervisors in every aspect of what we are doing through better use of data and technology. We also made great progress with the consent decree reforms. Again, my focus on the consent decree is not some intellectual exercise, but a fundamental part of regaining the public's trust and making the department function better. We must have a department that's accountable, well-trained, well-equipped, and has the best technology so we can serve the public more effectively. To that end, I created the Compliance Bureau to align reform efforts that previously were not well coordinated or sometimes at odds with one another. We also established our critical incident video release policy, which guides the process for releasing video footage from critical incidents to the public. In addition, we implemented 11 new use of force policies and developed and delivered the first block of e-learning and classroom training required by the consent decree, which focused on police legitimacy and de-escalation. Without the public's trust, as we all know, it is often difficult to get witnesses to cooperate with investigations and help us solve cases. That simply has to change. Regaining the public trust is a central part of my crime plan because it directly impacts our ability to reduce crime. Also this year, we secured funding to move the training academy to the University of Baltimore, which will happen in a few weeks. This move dramatically improves the training facility itself and increases our ability to provide high-quality professional training in a high-quality environment. Other initiatives are being worked on and are underway. We've heard from our officers regarding the need to improve facilities, and this is a huge step in that direction. We also hired the Baltimore Police Department's first ever academic director and are in the process of hiring curriculum developers and legal instructors to deliver the much needed and much improved training to drive these reforms. We also created new medical and overtime policies which were designed to make our officers healthy and better rested so they're able to perform on a consistently high level. Because of these new policies and implementations, more than 60 active duty members returned to service, and as a result, we've been able to grow the number of active full duty members in patrol who respond to citizens' calls for service. So getting our officers back on the street has reduced our overtime spending in the second half of this year. These are trends that I fully expect will continue in 2020. On the technology front, we're building capacity to dramatically improve performance. We hired an experienced chief technology officer and elevated technology in the organizational chart to accelerate long overdue technological improvements and efficiencies. We're also in the process of reviewing our records management system options. This is an important step towards bringing the Baltimore Police Department technological capabilities out of the slow, antiquated, paper-driven environment and into the 21st century digital environment. Finally, over the past few months, we've entered into several important new agreements with our state and federal partners, and we've received several sizable government grants. The result will be significant additional resources in 2020 in terms of law enforcement officers on the street and improved technology and data analysts and data sharing and resource sharing. The BPD is now on a steady course to achieving its reform goals over the next several years, but not, as some may claim, at the expense of reducing crime in our city. In my experience, and according to other policing experts from around the country, reforming our department is the pathway to reducing violent crime. Of course, it's been a difficult year for all of us who love Baltimore. There's been far too much violence, far too much pain, far too much mourning. One murder is too many. 0 murders should always be the goal. Again, let me assure you that the men and women of our department feel the urgency of our present situation, and we will not stop until Baltimore is the safe city we all want it to be.
Thank you. So as you can see, we're working to solve this problem from all angles because it will take all of us to change the culture of violence in our city. Now we'll take a few questions.
Can you give us any idea as to what is behind the particular stubborn brand of violence that marks Baltimore year in, year out, seems to keep on growing? What makes Baltimore different? What's different here?
That is what's called a culture of violence. And in that culture, people are deciding and making their decision to solve their conflicts with gun violence because there either is a lack of consequences or a lack of fear of existing consequences. And so we have to make sure we are doing our part to identify those bad actors and making sure we produce quality investigations that make it all the way through the criminal justice system, that we do our part so that people feel those consequences. They have to be swift and they have to be certain. You've heard me talk about the certainty of punishment, not necessarily the severity of it.
What are you doing right now to change the culture? I mean, how do you reach out and address these people and regain trust with these people?
It is everything that we're doing. It is transforming the police department. It is rebranding our image. It is training officers to have more confidence and more competence in the way we engage community members. It is how we make sure that we're providing great investigations to our state's attorney and U.S. attorney for prosecutions. It is making sure we supervise, that we manage well, and that we hold ourselves accountable so that we can demonstrate to the public they can trust us with information that, number one, we care, and number two, we can actually do something about it. All of this takes time, but it is everything that we're doing about how we engage our community and build trust that we lost, that we're working to regain.
Commissioner, Mayor, how do you, what are the parameters for success? I mean, would it be any reduction in murders by this time next year? I mean, how would you judge yourself at this time next year?
I think we look at overall crime reduction. Certainly we look at reductions in murder rates, in shooting rates, but we look at overall crime reductions, increases in clearance rates, the increase in how many cases we clear and hold people accountable by arresting them and holding them accountable actually changes the culture of the individuals who are choosing to make these bad decisions to use violence. And so it is all of that working together. It is consent decree reforms and demonstrating to the community that we are reforming our department, and then seeing different levels of citizen satisfaction because the citizens are seeing and feeling a different police department and a different response. When you put all of that together, those are metrics that you can use to say that we're better now than we were a year ago.
Commissioner, you've been in charge for about 9 months. Did you think you would be have the policing side of this might be able to have more impact than it has by now?
Well, I try to keep an open mind. I try to keep an open mind, and we are, working to always assess leadership capabilities within our department and working with all of our partners in government and all of our stakeholders. And I came here with an open mind, with, I wanted to bring lessons learned that I have learned, but I'm in a different city, and it's not that it's harder. It's not that we aren't doing it, because we are. And I see the improvements because we're making the improvements every single day, and we're changing our department, and we're fixing it from the inside out. This is not a hard thing. I think it's hard for people watching who have high expectations and have a sense of urgency because they've seen it for years and years, although I just arrived here. But we feel this urgency. We live it. Our officers get injured every day because of it. That's how I know we sense the urgency.
Is Baltimore, I think I've asked you this question before, based on your experience in New Orleans, what is it about Baltimore that Baltimore is not doing that some other cities have done?
I think building the capacity, we've lost some capacity, and we are now doing here what we had to do in New Orleans. We lost capacity with personnel. We went into a consent decree, so much of what we have to do, we have to teach ourselves to do it differently, and we have to regain public trust. And all of that has to happen while actually serving the public every day. So the work doesn't stop while we reform. And so that is what's happening. And we all have to remind ourselves that we're dealing with the crime fight while transforming a police department at the same time. Very few police departments in cities have that mandate. We have it.
Anything else? Commissioner, there's resistance from the rank and file to the reforms, as shown by the end of these statements. How difficult is it to regain the public's trust when there's a theory in fighting?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I meet with officers constantly, and I meet with supervisors and members of our department constantly. And I think what you're hearing is the sentiment of FOP leadership, not the sentiment of the rank and file. I think the men and women support the reform efforts because they want their department, and we want our department to be a great department. They welcome the improvements. They welcome the new technology. They welcome the accountability and the transparency. And so as I meet with the members of our department, I see acceptance and the willingness to make our department a great department. And sometimes I think what you're hearing is not from the rank and file, it's from the leadership of the FOP.
Can we ask the mayor one more question?
Yeah, last question, Jane.
We're almost at January of 2020. Has there been any movement on getting the now somewhere around $25 million in the Children and Youth Fund out the door?
Well, Jane, as you know, that is a community-driven process. I really don't oversee that. It's really overseen by community. They have their own structure in place, and my expectation is for that money to go out the door immediately. So they have their process that they have to work through, and I respect their process.
With all respect, that was said by your office months ago.
And I still
about getting
stand-
the money out the door.
And I still stand by that. You know, they have their own process that I don't control, and they are receiving, requests from various organizations, and that's their process. I don't interfere in that. I made sure that we did the Children and Youth Fund, that it will have no political influence over it. So I stand by my decision. Well, as most of you knew, we had a challenge during the cleanup, and there were two groups that joined together that really did a great job in the city of Baltimore. And one of those groups is Kevin L. Cooper Foundation, and the other one is No One Left Unhelped.
No one left unhelped.
No One Left Unhelped. So,
Thank you.
this one is for you,
Thank you.
and this one is for you. Y'all like to have some remarks? And this was an initiative to really clean up the city of Baltimore, and these two groups joined together and say, hey, what can we do to help? And there was many organizations out there, but these two collected the most trash of any of the groups.
Yes, I say something. Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Molak founder of No One Left Unhelped. And I just want to say that when we came up with the idea to clean a community where there was illegal dumping going on, we knew that we could not do it alone. And we wanted to unify with another organization who work with the children and do a lot of things for the community as No One Left Unhelped do. So that's when I called my sister, Miss Greta, and I said, how about we do this together? And she was like, yes, let's do it. She got all her youth together, I got all my youth together, and we came together and did it together. And that's what it's about, unifying, doing things together. That's how you can make a difference in this city. And I just thank the mayor for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning. This is what it looks like when you unify and you come together as one. We can do a lot together. So I thank this organization, No One Left Unhelped, as well as the Kevin L. Cooper Foundation. It all goes to the initiative of the youth. For the youth coming out, putting hard work, because the youth want to live in a clean and safe environment. And thank you, Mayor, for allowing us the Be More Beautiful program to continue,
Yes.
that we can come out and clean our communities and also open up job opportunities for the youth to
Yes,
work.
that's
Thank
right.
you.
Yes, making a difference in the community.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated this year. We're looking for even more competition in the spring. And thank you to No One Left Unhelped, who did a great job. We're super excited about the mayor's now annual cleanup cup. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. And the Kevin L. Cooper Foundation as well. We got a lot out of both groups, so thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions on this topic?
I guess for the volunteers, like, one, how does it feel to win the awards, but also, how will you keep it going?
Oh, we do this, we've done over, I'm sorry.
We've done over 100 cleanups in Baltimore City. This is not our first. These children get out. Before we were even getting paid through Youth Works, they were coming out doing it for free every Saturday. We collected 10.97 tons of trash in one day. But we've done over 100 cleanups in this city, and this is all volunteer work. They just begin to get paid through Youth Works. So we thank Ms. Rebecca for that, for signing us up for Youth Work this year. But before then, we were doing it for free.
Can you say